Hello and welcome, friends, back to another episode of Crochet Business Chat Podcast. If you are a crochet product seller, today's podcast is going to be for you. Um, I'm sure there will be little tidbits in there that will fit for designers or other types of product businesses as well. So you just, stick around, decide if there's something that you can implement in your own business. So happy to have you. We are going to be talking about what's working now at markets and for selling crochet products. So, who am I and why am I even talking about this? My name is Pam Grice, Crochetpreneur. I'm on a mission to help 100,000 makers build financial freedom through crochet. So I do that over at crochetpreneur.com and here on the Crochet Business Chat podcast. So we've been doing this for quite some time. I took a little bit of a break. You'll see me drinking because I have some issues, but I should have had my Crochetpreneur cup this morning. I'll remember that next week. So anyway, say hello in the comments. I see Catherine's here. Hi, Kathy. All right, I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you this morning. That way I can drink throughout the PowerPoint and you won't notice. And I'll be able to follow my notes. And then I'll come back at the end and answer any questions that you might have about selling products. Sorry if that made a noise on my microphone. Okay. Hello, Elsa. Happy to have you here. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Let's do this. There we go. That worked. All right, let me know if you can hear me okay. If you have any trouble, I'll check the comments throughout to see if you have any problems. In the meantime, how about we get started? I'm going to manage my screen here a little bit. So there we go. Okay, so we are getting specific, but we're not talking about a new stitch or a new yarn or how to photograph your products for Etsy. Today, we're going a little bit deeper than that, and we're talking about what's actually working right now for crochet sellers who are building real, sustainable, profitable businesses. And I want to say up front, some of you, some of what I'm going to share today is going to feel a little bit counterintuitive, and maybe it's a little bit different than what you've heard before, but things are working differently than they used to before. So that's the reason for that. So you might hear something and think, wait, that's the opposite of what I thought I was supposed to do. So that's intentional because some of the most common advice floating around the handmade market, the handmade business space, is generally leading people in the wrong direction. And I'd rather have an honest conversation about that with you, rather than just tell you something that sounds nice or that you've heard a million times before. So we're not doing that anymore. Or not that we ever did that, but we're not doing that. So grab a cup of coffee, grab some yarn, and how about we get into it this morning? Okay, so here's where I want to start. A few years ago, and some of you have been around long enough in this space that you might remember that it felt almost easy to sell handmade. You could sell anything. You'd show up to a craft fair, you'd have a tote bag, some market bags, you'd walk away with a few $100s, right? You just put some stuff out on a table, walk away with some money, and it was all good. Or you'd post something on Instagram and it would actually reach people. You'd put something on Etsy and organic traffic was still a real thing. But that window is closed. Well, not completely closed, but it's definitely smaller than it used to be. Right now, customers are more careful with where they're spending money. The handmade market is more crowded than it's ever been. And a lot of crochet sellers are responding by sort of scrambling and doing more. They're creating more products. They're doing more markets. They're creating more content, basically more of everything. And they're still not seeing the growth that they had hoped for. But the really interesting thing is that when we look at sellers who are thriving, they are doing something different. So trust me, they do exist. They're out there, they're building real solid businesses, and almost none of them are doing it by doing more. So they got there by doing things differently. So that's what today is all about. It's not basically a to-do list. It's not a strategy that requires you to work 20 hours a day. It's 7 specific shifts that I'm seeing in sellers who are genuinely building profitable, sustainable crochet businesses. So let's talk about the first strategy. Strategy number 1, sellers who are doing well have almost universally simplified what they offer. Now, I know that may sound backwards. I know a lot of people have been saying, well, just add things, add things, add things. But more products don't necessarily mean more opportunities to sell. It doesn't mean more options mean more customers. What is actually happening is when a customer walks into your market booth or lands on your Etsy shop and there are 47 different unrelated things, hats and bags and stuffed animals and dishcloths and keychains and baby sets, their brain becomes overwhelmed. It's sort of like walking into a disorganized, scattered flea market and you don't know where to go first. Right? They don't know where to look. They don't know what you're all about. And so instead of picking something to purchase, they just sort of move on to try and find someplace to land. So just like with us, decision fatigue is a real thing for your customers, and it affects how they operate more than you might realize. The customers who have really figured this out have narrowed, the sellers who have really figured this out have really narrowed it down to focus on a core collection. So maybe 10 or 15 products that feel cohesive, they have a clear aesthetic, they tell a visual story when you look at them together. It's important to recognize that a seller with 12 intentional, well-priced, well-presented, best-selling products often outperform a seller with 85 random ones, provided they're not competing on price. And competing on price is another story. We'll talk about that later. But focused sellers have a stronger brand. Their booth has a story. Their customer knows exactly what they're getting and whether that business is for them. As soon as they walk into the booth, they get the vibe. Oh, this is for me. This is just what I've been looking for. Right? So the inventory is manageable in a way that doesn't create stress and waste. So here's a question I want you to sit with this week. What products do people repeatedly come back for in your business? Not what you think they should buy, what they do actually come back for, ask about by name, or message you to restock. If you know the answer to that question, cool, lean in that direction. If you don't, that is your first homework assignment. Figure out what your customers are buying. Okay, strategy number 2. And this one is connected to the first one. The sellers who are building real profit have leaned into repeatable patterns. And I can already hear the groans from the gallery. So a lot of you are saying, oh, it's so boring. I'm a creative. I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. So let's just talk about it. Okay, take a breath. One of the things that draws so many of us to crochet is the creativity of it, the ability to make something new, to experiment, to try different things. And I'm not asking you to give that up. What I'm asking you to do is separate strategic creativity from constant originality, because those are not the same thing. So here's what I mean. Let's say you have a market tote bag that sells really well. You've made it 12 times, you know the pattern by heart, you could make it in your sleep, and it's starting to feel a little monotonous. So the temptation is to move on, find a new pattern, keep things fresh. But what if instead you made it into 5 new seasonal colorways? Or you added a new type of handle, maybe a leather handle, maybe a braided handle. Or maybe you did a limited run with a textured stitch variation. Or maybe you make a mini and a jumbo version of the same thing. Now you have an evolving interesting product, and you're still working with a pattern that you can make efficiently and well. That efficiency matters so much more than most people realize when it comes to sustainable profits. The more you make something, the faster you get at it. Your cost per hour goes down, your quality goes up, your consistency improves. And that's where the profit actually lives, in the familiar, the practiced, the repeatable. Creativity doesn't have to disappear because you have a system. If anything, it gets better because you're not starting from zero every single time and you have energy left over to actually be creative instead of just being stressed. Okay, strategy number 3. They're building email lists. So the sellers who are building sustainable income are treating their email list like gold. Let me ask you one thing. How much time do you spend on social media? On Instagram, on TikTok, on Pinterest? And how much of that time is actually translating into reliable, predictable sales? A lot of sellers, the answer is a lot of time and not a lot of reliable sales. And I think it's because we've been operating under a sort of misunderstanding. We've been treating followers like customers, but they're not the same thing. When someone follows you on social media, that's simply a signal of vague interest, right? But when they give you their email address, that's a signal of genuine intent and that they desire to be connected to you. That's the first step in leading them into a purchase. So they chose to be in your world. Nobody's algorithm forced that. Here's the other thing about social media that I think is really important to understand is that you don't own that audience. People say it over and over and over again. I'm sure this isn't the first time you've heard it. But when you're on social media and even on Etsy, the platform owns your audience. If your Instagram account gets suspended, which happens to real people for real random reasons, or if the algorithm changes and your reach drops by like 80%, which also happens, your business takes a hit that you have no control over. Your email list is different. Your email list is yours, and nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can decide that your emails aren't going to get sent today except you. And you get to decide how they hear from you and what they hear. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I don't know how to build an email list. I don't have a lead magnet. I don't know what to even send. Okay. I want to demystify this for you because it is not that complicated. All right. Some of the simplest things work beautifully. Yes, a discount code for first-time customers, but be cautious with this because it's not really a gift, right? They have to purchase something to get the discount. There are other ideas you can implement as well. Hang on, I need to take a drink. Okay, other ideas are VIP early access to your restocks or your new seasonal collections. A restock alert for people who missed out on something popular. This is only for people on your email list. A simple crochet care guide, something genuinely useful that you'd be happy to hand someone at a market anyway. The goal is to move the people off of borrowed platforms and into a space where you control the relationship. Because here's the thing that I keep coming back to. The sustainability of your business is not in the first sale. The sustainability and cash flow are in the follow-up. And email is how you do that. Okay, number 4. Strategy number 4 is the sellers who are thriving aren't relying on a single income stream. Specifically, they're not putting all of their eggs in the craft fair basket. And I want to say this with love because I know a lot of you live for your local markets. The energy, the community, the feeling of handing something you made to someone who's genuinely excited about it, there's nothing quite like that. And I'm not here to take that away or say there's anything less than about that. There isn't. But I want to ask you an honest question. What happens to your business if one rainy weekend wipes out your biggest market? My husband, it's Memorial Day today in the US. My husband had a food vending business, and every year his biggest market was on Memorial Day. And he would make tens of thousands of dollars, and that would, bring him through the winter season. Well, the year we got married, rain came. The rain came, and it totally wiped out his business and wiped out any profits that we would have had to sustain us through the winter. So we had to pivot. And anytime you have to make the pivot, it hurts. It hurts a lot. All right. And when that happens, that's a sign that your business income is more fragile than it needs to be. So the sellers who are building sustainability have usually diversified in some way. And again, I'm not saying you have to do this all at once, but think about what one or two additional streams might look like for you specifically. Maybe it's an Etsy shop that generates income even when you're not physically at market. Maybe it's a wholesale or consignment relationship with a local boutique. They carry your products, you get consistent orders without the booth setup. Maybe it's digital products, patterns, tutorials, a mini course on a technique that you know really well. Digital products are genuinely powerful because once you make them once, they can sell while you sleep. So the goal is not complexity for its own sake. The goal is stability, income that doesn't completely depend on the weather on a Saturday in November or a Monday in May. Okay, strategy number 5, and this one I think has the highest ceiling in terms of what it can do for your business. They have figured out what makes them different. Here's what I see so often in the handmade space. Sellers are trying to compete on price, lowering their prices to match someone else or beat Shein or Temu or Walmart, or to attract bargain shoppers. And I understand why people do this. It feels like the most direct lever that you have. But competing on price is a race to the bottom that handmade sellers simply cannot and will never win. You will exhaust yourself trying, and you will never catch up to mass production. Sellers who are doing well have done something much more powerful. They've made their business feel like something. They have a world they're inviting customers into. Maybe it's a cottagecore aesthetic with natural fibers, earth tones, farm-to-table vibes. Maybe it's a luxury minimalist brand where every single thing is natural, beautifully handmade, and feels expensive. Maybe it's a product line themed to your particular audience. Dog items, cat items, products for van lovers, whatever your audience really connects with. Maybe it's whimsical fantasy, frogs and mushrooms and cottages and magic. Or maybe it's sustainability focused, organic yarn, eco-conscious packaging, a whole story about caring for the planet. I want us to make a shift from, I need to sell what's trending. Yes, it might make you sales, but it doesn't build a memorable, lasting brand. In reality, customers are not just buying your product. They're buying a feeling and they're buying an identity. When someone picks up your crocheted bag from your market booth, you're not just buying a bag. They're buying into a version of themselves they want to be. Your job is to know exactly what that version looks like and make everything about your brand reflect that. People remember businesses that feel distinct, and distinct is absolutely something you can build no matter where you're starting from. Okay, strategy number 6, the one so many struggling sellers avoid, tracking actual profit. So a lot of crocheters are unknowingly losing money on every sale. They're having busy market days, their products are selling, and things feel like they're going well. But when you actually sit down and do the math, once you subtract materials, booth fees, transaction fees, packaging, travel, and put any kind of reasonable value on your own time, your profit margin is almost nothing. And I say this not to discourage you, but because you cannot fix a problem you don't know you have. Here's a number I want you to think about. If you spend 8 hours making something that sells for $40 and your materials cost is $15, you've made $3.12 an hour. That doesn't even count your packaging and your booth fee and all of that stuff. So that's not a business. That is not going to get your bills paid, and that is not profit. I mean, it is, but it's small. Remember, revenue, which is your total sales, is not your profit. A sold out Saturday is not automatically a successful Saturday. And this is why I say you have to have, or you can have a sold out market and still not have a healthy business. The sellers who are thriving know their actual numbers. They track materials cost per item. They factor in booth fees, transaction fees, packaging, and travel. They value their own time because your time has a real cost, even if nobody is writing you a check for it. And they make pricing decisions based on what the math actually says, not just what they think the market will bear. So here's the good news. Once you know your real numbers, you have real power to change them. You can raise prices, you can simplify your product line, you can drop the products that eat your time and don't pay you back. But you can only do that if you're actually looking. And just as a side note, if you're interested, I haven't yet as we're recording this, but I will link my market profits calculator below that helps you break down all of these numbers. I'll put that link in the description so that you can purchase this little tool and it will map all of this out for you. Okay, and the last strategy, and I think it's the one that underlies all the others, it's a mindset shift. The sellers who are building lasting businesses have started thinking like CEOs, not just makers. And before you click away on me, I know that phrase hits people differently. I know you didn't start crocheting because you want to become a corporate person. Neither did I. So that's not what I mean. What I mean is this. The most successful handmade sellers are regularly asking 4 questions about their business. What is selling? Not what you think should sell, what actually is based on real data. What is profitable? Because those two things are often not the same. Something can sell well and still not be worth making. What is scalable? What could grow without requiring you to work proportionally more hours? Because time is finite and burnout is real. And maybe most importantly, what is draining you? What is costing you more energy than it returns? And can you simplify it, delegate it, or stop doing it altogether? These sellers look at their business with honest eyes. They make decisions based on information, not just feeling or habit or what they've always done. And they treat their creative work like something worth running well because it is. Here's what I've noticed. When the business side is working, when there's clarity and intentionality, the creativity often thrives more, not less. Because you're not operating from anxiety. You have margin, you have space, and that's when the best work happens. So let's bring it all together. The crochet sellers who are thriving in the post-COVID era are not necessarily the most talented people in the room. They don't always have the biggest social following or the most beautiful booth setup or the most Instagram-worthy flat lays. They're the ones who are willing to look honestly at their business and make strategic choices. Simplify when simplifying was hard. Build systems even when systems felt uncreative. Look at the numbers even when the numbers felt scary. Diversify even when craft fairs felt comfortable and familiar. And here's why I want you to sit with this. Talent is really hard to develop. You either have a feel for color or you're working to develop it. You either have natural design instincts or you're building them. But strategy is something that can be learned. Systems can be built, decisions can be made differently starting today. You don't need a business degree. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to be willing to think about your crochet business as a business, and one that you've intentionally designed to support your life, your creativity, and your financial goals, not one that you're just reacting to week by week. That's what thriving looks like, and it's available to you wherever you're starting from right now. Now, I'll be over to answer your questions in the comments in just a moment, or if you're watching on replay, leave your questions in the comment and I'll come back to answer them over the course of time. But if this episode hit home for you, if you heard one of those 7 things and thought, yes, that's exactly what I've been struggling with, then I want to tell you about something we're putting together that I'm super excited about. It's called the Crochet Sellers Summit. And we're going to go deep on exactly topics like product strategy, pricing that actually pays you, branding, marketing, building an email list, craft fairs, and what's genuinely working in the handmade market right now. This is going to take place July 15th through the 17th of 2026. The waitlist is open. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to crochetsellerssummit.com and get on our waitlist. So it takes less than 30 seconds to sign up, and waitlist members always get first access and the best pricing when the doors open. And if you have a friend who's also building a crochet business, share this episode with them. So first, click like and comment so that we can kickstart the algorithm. Then hit that share button and text it to your friends right now. Tag them in the stories. These conversations are so much better when we have them together, so invite your friends. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. I have things coming in the weeks to come, so we'll have more content for both sellers and designers. And if you're here watching live, let me know in the chat if you have any questions, and I'll get to them now before we wrap things up. Let me change my screen, and I'll come back to your questions. All right. How's that? All right. I do see some comments here. Good morning. Sorry, just reading your comments. Yes, Sarah says, remember that financial accessibility doesn't equal low prices. My stuff is quite expensive, but I offer options to do things like layaway. It's a great idea. Layaway, payment plans, those kinds of things. Kathy said she's excited for the Sellers Summit. It will be really fun. We're solidifying our speaker lineup this week. We have some great speakers for you. Some you will recognize, some that may be new to you that you may not have connected with before. So that will be super fun. And I guess that's it. I'm going to wrap things up for this morning. I'll be back, I think, hopefully next week. It's always health dependent. You know, we're in that stage of life. So hopefully next week, I really plan to be back with another podcast for you. So thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you all soon.